For 25 years, the International Space Station, or ISS, was the undisputed peak of human achievement. It was a sprawling, chaotic laboratory held together by thousands of miles of exposed cables, manual switches, and metal scaffolding. To look at it was to see a space garage, a piece of Cold War-era hardware that had been upgraded, patched, and kept alive for decades by sheer force of will. But today, 400 kilometers above the Earth, that era is effectively over. A new player has entered orbit, and it doesn't look like a garage at all. This is Tiangong, China's heavenly palace, and as of January 2026, it is the most modern outpost humanity has ever built. While the ISS remains a legend of international cooperation, it is also a relic, currently battling air leaks in the Russian segment and aging life support systems. In stark contrast, between 2021 and 2022, China fully assembled an entirely new station from the ground up in just 18 months. And the shocking reality isn't just that it's newer, it's that it is fundamentally smarter. Step inside the Tianhe core module, and the first thing that strikes you is the silence. On the ISS, the constant hum of fans and pumps is deafening, often requiring astronauts to wear earplugs to sleep. Inside Tiangong, the noise level is kept to a whisper-quiet 50 decibels, roughly the sound of a quiet library. This is achieved through a distributed ventilation system that buries the noisy hardware deep behind soundproof panels. Then there is the aesthetic. People often say Tiangong feels less like a science lab and more like an Apple store in orbit. Despite having a diameter nearly identical to the ISS modules, about 4.2 meters across, the interior feels twice as large. The secret lies in the layout. The ISS American segment is cluttered with standoff racks that protrude into the hallway, creating a claustrophobic tunnel effect. China's Wentian and Mengtian modules, however, stretch nearly 18 meters long, more than double the length of the American Destiny Laboratory, and use a flush mount design. This creates a seamless, open continuous workspace that eliminates the tight, tangled corridors of older stations. The station is wrapped in smooth white paneling, concealing the clutter of cables and life support systems. On the ISS, if a router breaks, you might have to dig through a nest of wires that hasn't been touched in 10 years. On Tiangong, almost every piece of equipment is wirelessly connected via Wi-Fi 6 technology, reducing the cabling weight by nearly 80%. Everything from the air filtration units to the experiment racks is designed to be modular. If a panel fails, you don't fix it, you pop it out and replace it, just like swapping a battery. This minimalist design serves a vital purpose beyond just looks: mental health. The bright LED panels are designed to reduce visual fatigue, shifting their hue throughout the day to mimic Earth's circadian rhythm: warm amber in the morning, bright cool white for work, and soft blues for the evening. In a world where the sun rises 16 times a day, this artificial sky is the only thing keeping the crew's biological clocks from shattering. But life inside Tiangong isn't just about the lighting, it's about a new standard of human comfort. This is perhaps most evident in the galley. On the ISS, astronauts have spent decades eating rehydrated camping food heated in warm water pouches, a process that takes about 30 minutes and results in a lukewarm, mushy meal. In 2026, the crew of Shenzhou 21, currently led by Commander Zhang Lu, enjoys something revolutionary: the world's first space microwave. Developed by Gallons Aerospace, this isn't the microwave you have in your kitchen. Standard microwaves would fry the station's electronics with interference and consume too much power. This device uses a magnetic field shield and variable frequency technology to cook food efficiently in zero gravity. It can cook a hot, 3-course meal for the entire crew in just 7 minutes. With a menu of over 120 items, including kung pao chicken, braised pork balls, and spicy beef, the psychological impact is massive. When you are floating in a void 400 kilometers from home, a steaming hot meal is more than nutrition, it is a tether to humanity. Fresh food is also becoming standard. The Tiangong 9 cargo ship, which docked late last year, delivered crates of fresh apples, oranges, and even cherry tomatoes grown in high-tech farms on Earth. But the crew is also growing their own. In the Wentian lab, small hydroponic trays are currently cultivating lettuce and wheat. Unlike early NASA experiments which were purely scientific, these are production tests aiming to supplement the crew's diet permanently. However, while China is perfecting this boutique laboratory, a massive shadow is growing in South Texas. As we move into early 2026, the conversation about space stations has shifted because of one word: Starship. In October 2025, SpaceX successfully launched Flight 11, the final flight of their Block 2 Starship. The world watched as the Super Heavy booster was caught by the Mechazilla tower arms for the third time, proving that reusable rockets are no longer a theory, they are a routine industrial reality. Now, in January 2026, the first Block 3 Starship is sitting on the pad at Starbase. This vehicle is longer, lighter, and more powerful than anything before it. Here is the comparison that keeps geopolitical strategists awake at night: volume. The International Space Station has a pressurized habitable volume of roughly 388 cubic meters. Tiangong, in its current 3-module configuration, has about 110 to 120 cubic meters of living space. A single SpaceX Starship has a pressurized volume of over 1,000 cubic meters. That means one Starship launch carries nearly 3 times the living space of the entire ISS, or 8 times the space of Tiangong. SpaceX is currently preparing for the propellant transfer demo, scheduled for later this year. If they succeed in transferring fuel from one ship to another in orbit, the very concept of a space station changes. You won't need to build a station module by module over 10 years. You just launch a Starship, park it in orbit, and voila, you have a station bigger than the ISS, instantly. This reality has turned Tiangong into something fascinating. It is both the future and the underdog. China knows it cannot compete with Starship on raw volume yet, so they are competing on intelligence and biology. Just this month, in January 2026, Chinese state media confirmed a major breakthrough aboard Tiangong, the completion of the station's first long-duration rodent experiment. Mice, housed in the Wentian module, were exposed to a simulated submagnetic field to test how low gravity and low magnetic environments affect bone density. This is crucial data for Mars. While Western scientists have done mouse studies for years, Tiangong's newer racks allow for automated feeding and waste removal, meaning the crew doesn't have to spend hours cleaning cages. This automation extends outside the hull, too. Tiangong is equipped with 2 mechanical giants, a 10-meter robotic arm on the core module and a 5-meter arm on the lab module. Individually, they are powerful, but they can also combine to form a single 15-meter worm that can crawl across the entire exterior of the station. In recent months, these arms have been used to install sensitive external payloads without a human ever stepping outside. But when humans do step out, they are using the second-generation Tiangong spacesuits. These suits have been upgraded in 2025 to include better joint mobility and a heads-up display in the helmet, allowing astronauts to see checklists and vital signs without looking down at a wrist cuff. Inside, to combat the toll of zero gravity, Tianonauts are testing smart exercise suits. These are compression garments embedded with resistance bands that mimic the pull of gravity on specific muscle groups. Instead of just running on a treadmill for 2 hours, the Tianonauts wear these suits during their daily tasks, turning every movement, reaching for a switch, floating to a bunk, into a micro-workout. It's a subtle, futuristic upgrade designed to keep them fit for the long haul. And the long haul is exactly what China is planning. Tiangong as we see it today is merely Phase 1. The China Manned Space Agency has already unveiled the blueprints for Phase 2, which will kick off with the launch of a new, multi-docking node later this year or early next. This node will attach to the front of the Tianhe core, turning the T-shaped station into a cross shape. This allows for the docking of 3 additional large modules, effectively doubling the station's size and bringing its habitable volume closer to that of the ISS. China is calling this the expanded configuration, and it is designed specifically to host international partners. We know that astronauts from Pakistan are already in advanced training. Discussions are underway with the European Space Agency, despite political tensions, to send European experiments, if not astronauts, to the station. China is effectively building the Global South's alternative to the NASA-led Artemis Accords. Orbiting nearby, another giant is preparing to wake up. The Xuantian Space Telescope, often called the Chinese Hubble, is in its final testing phases. It is a bus-sized telescope with a field of view 300 times wider than Hubble. Unlike the James Webb Telescope, which is parked 1,000,000 miles away, Xuantian will fly in the same orbit as Tiangong. If it runs out of fuel or needs a camera upgrade, it will simply drift over to the space station, dock, and be serviced by the crew. This garage-in-orbit capability is something no other space telescope has ever had. So, where does this leave us in 2026? We are witnessing a divergence in human history. In the West, the focus has shifted to the moon and the sheer brute force of SpaceX's Starship, a commercial, chaotic, and explosive rush to the stars. In the East, China has perfected the orbital home, a serene, highly automated, and government-run laboratory that prioritizes stability and methodical expansion. Tiangong isn't just a piece of metal in the sky. It is a statement. It proves that the center of gravity in space exploration is shifting. The Heavenly Palace is open for business, fully operational, and expanding. The only question that remains is, when the ISS is finally deorbited and burned up in the atmosphere in a few years, will Tiangong be the only permanent home left for humans in low Earth orbit? Or will it be just a small white dot floating next to the massive steel towers of the Starship fleet? Regardless of the answer, one thing is clear, the space garage is dead. The era of the space apartment has begun.